Mabrika! Welcome to a new episode of Let's Talk Taíno. I'm Priscilla Colon, co-founder and creative here at Casareito, where our mission is to promote the Taíno language and culture. With summer on the way, a lot of you are jet-setting off on your next summer vacation or adventure. So today, we're going to be talking about modes of transportation. But first, let's talk a little bit about our traditional modes of transportation, those that our ancestors used. Our Taíno ancestors' main mode of transportation was the canoa. And this Taíno word was borrowed exactly as is and incorporated into the Spanish language. It also was changed a little bit and incorporated into English. We know it as canoe. The process of making a canoa or canoe first involved choosing a large enough tree. It depended on how many people you wanted that canoe to hold. After they knocked down the tree, then they would hollow it. They would use a burning process to burn the middle very carefully and then take out any extra pieces so it would leave room for people to sit inside. According to many of the European chronicles, our Taíno ancestors' canoa nagu, their canoes, were much faster than European rowboats because they were more agile. Some canoes that have been found could hold up to 150 people. These aren't tiny canoes. These canoes were used for trading in the Caribbean, and many of them could go back and forth between Central America, North America, and South America. So as you can imagine, these canoes were very sturdy. And many were also ornately carved. I have here on the screen an example of a canoe which is in the process of being made using the digging out or burning process. This is at a local Indian museum here in New Hampshire. And as you can see, this process of canoe building was used all over the Americas. A different type of canoa or canoe was called the piragua, and this is the word that the Taíno and Kalinago people used. This word was incorporated exactly as is into Spanish, and in English it became pirogue. A similar word also is used in French. The piragua or pirogue is a smaller and narrower canoe. It's usually meant for only a few people, and it was mostly used for river fishing. Interestingly enough, pira at the beginning of piragua is actually a Guarani word for fish. Now the piragua or pirogue is a narrow canoe that is built by indigenous people all over the world. Here on the screen you see an example of a pirogue from the Solomon Islands, which is near Australia. Now a lot of you Boricua out there might say, wait a second, I know the word piragua, but that's not what I thought it was. Let's find out why that is. Piragua is also a word for Puerto Rican shaved ice. Fruit syrup is poured over the shaved ice, and you can get it in all kinds of flavors. This piragua comes from the words pirámide, pyramid, and agua, water. So in this case, pirámide de agua became piragua. So even though it's the same word, it means two different things in two different languages, and it actually has different origins. So this is an example of a false cognate. That is a word that looks the same but has two different meanings. Now, of course, we know that since the 14 and 1500s, we've added way more modes of transportation. So we need to adapt our language to include all of those. So today, we're going to learn what those are. However, I'm going to be helping you, guiding you so that you can figure it out for yourself. You're going to be using your English and maybe your Spanish or other language skills to figure out what these new words mean. I'll start by giving you two words, and they are ihena, to transport, and ihenacano, transports or modes of transportation. Now, let's take a look at the remaining words that we're going to have to figure out. Katei bukera, what do you see? That's right. A lot of these words end with hena or ihena. So that means that it's referring to a different mode of transportation. Now we're going to do an activity to figure out the definitions. And during this activity, we're going to ask and answer the question, haralu, which? Are you ready? I am. Let's get started. Haralu karohena, which is karohena? Well, let's take a look at the pictures. I see a car on one side and a bicycle on the other. Let's take a look at that word, karohena. Does it remind you of one of these modes of transportation? It sounds a bit like a car to me, so let's take a look. That's right, karohena is car. That caro at the beginning comes from the Spanish carro, which is also very similar to car. Did you figure it out? I think so. Now let's take a look at the other word. So if karohena is car, can you guess what bicycle is? That's right, bicihena, bicycle. It sounds like bicicleta or bicycle. So now we can fill in these two definitions. Karohena is car and bicihena is bicycle. Are you ready for the next challenge? Haralu motorahena? I have two options. It's either a truck or a motorcycle. Which do you think it is? If you said motorcycle, that is correct. And that makes sense because motora in Spanish and motorcycle in English sound like motorajena. Do you want to guess what the truck is in Taíno? That is camiojena, because it sounds like the Spanish camión or truck. So for this exercise, you had a little advantage if you know some Spanish. So now we filled in motorajena, motorcycle, and camiojena, truck. Let's try the last two. Haralu tureihena, which is tureihena. This is tricky. I have a train on one side and a space shuttle on the other. Should we go for train because it starts with the letter T? Well, let's take a close look at the beginning of tureihena. That first part, turei, does it sound like something you already know? I remember that turei means sky. So that means tureihena is a space shuttle or rocket, because that's the mode of transportation that brings me to the sky. Do you want to guess what the train is in Taíno? That's correct, trenijena, because it sounds like tren or train. And with that, we fill in the last two translations, trenijena, train, and tureihena, space shuttle or rocket. Wasn't that cool? Using your previous language skills, whether in English or Spanish, you were able to figure out what these modes of transportation are in Taíno. I knew you could do it. So why don't we review one more time everything that we learned today? Haralu, which? Canoa, canoe. Piragua, pirogue or small slender canoe. Ihena, to transport. Ihenakano, transports or modes of transportation. Karohena, car. Bicihena, bicycle. Motorajena, motorcycle. Camiojena, truck. Trenijena, train. Tureihena, space shuttle or rocket. So, before we leave today, I have a little homework for you. Haralu buk agama, which do you have? So, do you have a karohena, camiojena, bicihena, motorajena, or kanoa? You can complete the sentence dak agama hek, I have a, and fill in the blank with a mode of transportation or vehicle. You can also fill in the blanks to talk about your vehicle's color. So for example, dak agama hek karohena. I have a car. Dakat karo henato ka kutusu. My car is blue. Now, I know that these are super simple sentences, but they're going to help you practice the ihenakano modes of transportation that we just learned. In case you haven't heard, we have Casarito's newsletter, which you can sign up for, and I'll leave the link below. You're going to get sneak peeks of upcoming episodes. You can stay in the know about everything that I'm working on in the background, and you get some language learning tips, including some fun activities so that we can continue learning. With spring well underway, check out Casarito's Conuco, where I talk to you about our indigenous processes for planting, show you everything we're planting in our own conuco, and we learn some Taíno along the way. Thank you again for joining me today here on our journey to rediscover, revitalize our Taíno language. I'm having a blast doing these lessons and learning along with you. In the meantime, Tai karaya guaitiao nagu.